This is podcast number one.
Number one.
For Beloved Stories. And what I'm calling this series of podcasts is Curious. The reason I'm calling it Curious is because there's no way to hear or engage with someone's story if you aren't at first curious. Throughout this series, we'll have different people who have stories and who are characters and involved in all these different films. But I want to let the viewers have the opportunity to hear their stories more in depth. So for this first one, I wanted to have you, Aaron Daly of Beloved Community.
That's right.
Come on here and let's talk about what Beloved Stories is and what we're doing because I think it's something we need to communicate. We got a story of our own and a big journey we've embarked upon.
That's right. Well, I think the beauty of Beloved Stories is that you get to tell other people's stories. I think sometimes when you're a storyteller, you can forget you also have your own story that needs to be told. Because if people are going to connect with these other nonprofits and their stories, they're also going to only connect to your story and what it is that God has made you. If the word is used of curious, He's made you a very curious type of person that has actually led you to dive into other people's stories. So I think this is a perfect title and a perfect opportunity to, before you start telling everybody else's story, let's tell the story of Beloved Stories and Joshko. So let's start with this. How could you tell the story of how you got to the place of starting Beloved Stories? Where would you start with that story?
I mean, I would start at 17 years old picking up a camera.
Yeah,
I picked up a camera at 16, 17 years old, and it became something that early on I felt confident with. When I was 17, I got published by National Geographic.
Wow.
And a photo by them. And that was like the first award I'd ever gotten. I wasn't good at school. Dude. I wasn't good at other things, but I was like, oh man, maybe I could do something with this. Started doing senior photos and then weddings and corporate work and all these things. But I think overall, photography was the thing that I fell in love with in filmmaking.
What does a camera do to help you tell those stories? What is it about a camera that sparked that in you?
Well, it captured the beauty that I was seeing in front of me. Because eventually what happened was I would take pictures of my surroundings. So my homie who spent 7 years in prison and had all these tattoos on him. And I remember taking a flick of him and sharing it. And people were like, yo, that's a powerful photo. I'm going to be praying for him regularly. And I was like, huh. And, but it wasn't I wasn't taking flicks of strangers or street photography. It was just my surroundings. So taking photos of the neighborhood and the community and writing little things about people's stories. The camera, a photo, gave someone an opportunity to sit there and study the person's face and think about them as an individual. And then filmmaking obviously is, that times 1,000 because you get to show all the different angles and emotions and hear the voices and it's almost like you're right there, but you're not. But it's the closest thing proximity wise to being physically right next to the people.
With filmmaking, I think what you've done well is it's almost like you've taken people into places you go all the time, but they would never go there. Yeah, so it's almost like you're giving a tour to these people that are so distant from broken communities, but you're so familiar and you see all the beauty. God's given you this eye to see things and to take pictures and to expose the beauty in broken communities. Yeah. And you're like, hey, let me take this other community that I do have connections in that they don't get to ever cross. Let me take them there and let them see it through my eyes rather than through their experiences and their fears.
Because then it's not as scary.
And it's not as scary. Yeah. And it kind of makes people curious.
Yeah, bro. And I would say this. I think this is worth mentioning. The first thing, really the beginning of where Beloved Stories, I could say, began in my heart was in 19 when the caravan of migrants was coming up through Central America and Mexico, came to the border. I remember seeing all the people's responses on Facebook and social media. I remember watching the news, and I was like, man, nobody's actually over there filming these people's voices. Nobody's capturing the reality of it. It's just politicized, and everyone's afraid and angry and all these things. And I was like, man, well, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go find the caravan. I'm going to go film them. And
so, to most people, they'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah, and it was crazy. It was crazy.
But to you, it's just natural. Let me go tell the story.
Yeah, it was like, and so my friend Jed and I, we went over there. We hopped in some random dude's car that we met right in Tijuana. And it's a cool story. But long story short, we get to the caravan, and we're with the people. And like, the one thing I couldn't capture, like with the equipment that I had, was when I got out of the car up there in the mountains, I just heard worship. I just heard people singing.
Wow.
And it was like a place of like, it was very solemn and very like humble. But there's 15,000 people were right there, and it was a refugee camp. And then what I did is, what God kind of developed in it was, man, well, where's the church's role with engaging with the immigrant, with the poor, with the widowed, with the orphan? Yeah. All those are lumped into this group. Yeah. And so then I start digging, and I get a connection with someone in Catholic Charities, and they're like, hey, we got a private house that's secret where we house migrants, and we're serving them and helping with the process of immigration, all legally. And so what we did is they allowed me to go film. And so then I got to follow the church and how the church engages with the immigrant, not individuals giving political opinions or stating biases, but just doing, man, okay, Christ calls us to care for the widow and the orphan. He says, man, what you did unto the stranger, you did unto me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, we'd be stupid to think that we could change anything of the government, of having these people who are already here. It's not going anywhere. The person's at your door. And so it was cool to capture people being like, yeah, we're just helping, and we're just serving, and we're just loving our neighbor. And so I made that film, and what ended up happening was there was a group of churches at that time across Arizona, and they showed that film in different churches, and a few of the campuses who were in white affluent spaces decided, man, I think, and highly conservative spaces, which this was not a conservative topic. Right. It was more lumped into liberal side of things. Right. But dude, these churches started housing migrants. ICE buses were pulling up, dropping them off, and they were getting them to their court dates and their sponsors. And what I got to see, though, was I got to see that story change someone's perspective. Story allowed someone to consider a perspective that they didn't have at that moment. Good, man. And then it actually compelled them to do something about it. They went, man, we'll serve. We'll help. Beautiful. So that's where I got to see the power of documentary and story. You know, to me, it was just humbling to see, like, wow, like God really used that in some people's lives. And we did it too. We were sleeping in the gym for a week and two at a time, and just serving. And it was beautiful.
So we see that the stories that you capture do a couple of things. It makes people who are far off close. Mm-hmm. It really presses into kind of a digital proximity, if you will.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. It allows for you to hear that people are real and being affected by policies and the struggles of our political world. And our tendency is to get wrapped up in all of the wars of policies, which I'm not saying are unimportant, but we can forget the stories.
Right.
And what you're trying to do is like, no, let's bring the people to the forefront that are being really affected by this and harmed. And there's all kind of false stories around there.
Yeah.
And then it's just a little bit of the natural gifting that God gave to a 17-year-old kid who got a camera and goes, wow, this is something that I'm good at, you know? Yeah. And so the mixture of that and your story and your life and being in these harder neighborhoods and, connecting with communities like that, or having a lot of relationships, it just started to develop within you.
Yeah, it was like God used everything that he gave me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, so now you're going to use that part of my story or that part of the things that you've put in me. Yeah. And then like, so I did the commercial stuff for a while. I was in the commercial world and on big productions and such. And I love excellent filmmaking and high quality filmmaking. Like
this dude's an equipment nerd, bro. This guy spends all of his money on fresh equipment and the newest cameras. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. And I love the craft of filmmaking, the art of it.
Yes.
And being in the production world, like I got to learn like what excellent quality looks like and stuff. So and the standard of high quality. And then, but then eventually I was like, man, I'm telling all these stories for big corporations and businesses. And a lot of times I'm like, man, the story's so lame compared to the one, like I could connect you with someone else could capture what you're, you know what I'm saying? And so eventually it was like, I started to just go out, like the Migrantes film, I started to go out and just do little stories of people. Yeah. Not at all like what you see on Facebook where people go up to people on the streets and homeless and they're like, hey, how bad is your life? Like not at all that. I don't agree with that approach. But just with people I'm in a relationship with, just say, hey, would you want to share your story, share your testimony, open up a little bit, and let's go to some of the places that pertain to your story, and let's just talk. And so I just started putting those videos out and stuff here and there. And
was that through Faces of Phoenix?
Yeah, that was the Faces of Phoenix. Yeah, and I haven't really done much with it anymore. But for a while, like that, I was utilizing
some of my favorite stuff.
Yeah, and it was people in our church community, people in other churches and stuff too, and just it was a blast to like make those things, but to also see like, okay, even just this is like powerful. I'd be at the lowrider cruises and like someone would be like, hey, yo, you got to talk to this homie. He's got a dope story. Like you just interview him for a few minutes and he'd love to share it. And so just doing stuff like that. So eventually what happened was though, like long story long is
that's why we're doing a podcast.
That's why we're doing a podcast.
We need to tell the whole story.
This is our podcast.
That's right.
We can do what we want.
Exactly.
You started a discipleship group.
Which is a whole nother story.
Yeah,
God told me specifically that God had given me, if you will, I'll put it this way. I know there's a lot of baggage of, sons and daughters in the ministry that have callings on their life, and that it was my calling to pour into them and help them discover what it is that God's, and impart the Father's heart.
Yeah.
And so we started gathering just a handful of us, of people that I have seen that I'm like, man, there's something, but we have to go through a season of discovery. And so this was just a season of discovery and and relationship and impartation.
Yeah. At 5 a.m.
At 5
on Mondays.
That's right. 5 a.m. on Mondays is exactly right. And you have been in a relationship for a long
time.
Years. Yeah. So at that place, we're asking you, Josh, pray and seek the Lord. What is it that he would desire for you? And you come back with what?
So and also I did not expect like something to rise in my heart with that, but I come back with like, man, I would just love to tell the stories of like those who are unseen, and like, but it wasn't yet formed into the whole vision of Beloved Stories. But like, man, if I could just go out and just be telling stories for people who like can't pay for it and afford it, and who like their stories are worthy of being told, if I could just do that all the time, that would be the dream. Stories of redemption, stories of radical change, stories of beauty taking place in the midst of brokenness. And
if I remember it also had to do with organizations that that you're like...
I had a list.
Yeah. That they really are doing the work, and I want to tell their story.
Yeah, I want to tell their story.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, at that time, you go, all right, well, let's be praying for it. Because there was a bunch of guys in the room that were all praying for their... whatever God has put on their heart. And the crazy thing is most of the dudes in the room, we got to see the Lord answer that prayer.
Did all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, and when you said yours, something leaped in me. And I remember this specifically. I'm like, Josh, you have to do this.
Yeah.
Like you have to do this. Like this is the Lord. But we got to start praying about it.
Yeah.
And so all of us start praying and then checking in on each other. And then one day,
It wasn't about till like a year later.
It was not till about a year later.
Yeah, it was like almost probably a year of praying and just waiting upon the Lord. And then one day I'm in Oregon, and there's a man at the wedding of my best man, my boy Steven, and I was the best man at his wedding, and there was another man who he had invited as a guest and who's a family friend, and he walked up, and Steven, I guess, had told him I'm a filmmaker, and the gentleman goes, "Hey, you're a filmmaker. I'd like to meet with you and talk with you. You probably know things going on in the city." I'm not thinking in anything. I'm just thinking, oh yeah, I know a lot of organizations I could connect you to, like that you'd probably love to look into and hear about. I'm not thinking anything else beyond that. And he's like, "Well, I'll connect with you in Phoenix sometime." I'm like, "All right, cool." We're in Oregon. And a few weeks later, he sends me a text because I give him my number, and I really didn't think anything of it at the time. He goes, "Hey, let's meet up at Starbucks, and I'll see you this day." I'm like, "All right, cool." We go meet up. He's like, I just remember we sit down and he asked me, "What's your story and what do you feel called to do?"
Wow.
And so I told him my story, and I told him, "Man, well, I'm actually like dreaming to do this." And I had just pitched a position with Surge Network the time.
That's right.
They were doing the criminal justice work. They had I had never worked for anybody in my life other than myself.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, this might be the step, and it was, because I had just drafted up a whole pitch and presentation for them, and they're like, "Sweet, we love it, but we don't have any funding." And so I showed him that pitch, and he goes, "Sweet, I'll fund it." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll fund your position, whole thing." And I'm like, "What?" And it was all around the criminal justice system and prison, and how the church's role in engaging with those who are incarcerated and coming out of incarceration. It was stuff I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And so that whole next year, me and Crystal and Emma, we spent the year going around to different churches and meeting with groups and doing trainings. I was filming in prisons and doing a podcast and stories and all these different things. And then about halfway through the year, he comes to me, the donor, and he says, "Hey, I think you need to start your own thing."
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think of that." And he goes, "Yeah, that wasn't comfortable to me." I was like, "Okay, like branch out and like start a nonprofit." Okay. And so he's like, "Pray about it and draft up a pitch for me and pitch it to me." And so I prayed about it for a while and drafted it up.
Too.
Yeah.
I was like, "Dude, that's right."
Yeah, we met. Yeah. And I pitched it to him, and he goes, "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. Let's do it." And so,
Bro, that's incredible.
So here we are. It's literally a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Yeah. He it had nothing to, he didn't even see my filmmaking by the time he committed. All he saw was a presentation with frames on it and stills. So I was like, wow, like, Lord, like, you did this.
Yeah.
Like, you made a way for this.
That's
like,
right.
What?
Yeah, that's
like, I was left in awe.
He prepared you for it since you were a kid.
Yeah.
He has, prepared you with your diligence to skill and the work that you've done. And he had put you in the right places. I mean, the Lord's hand is all over this thing, bro, man. From start to finish. It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, all over it. And so now, the pitch that I pitched to him was, I don't want this organization to just be, I don't want it to be criminal justice focused. I want it to be grassroots organizations working in under-resourced contexts. So it leaves a little bit of a broad margin for different missions of organizations. But they have to be grassroots. They're not organizations that got multi-million-dollar operating budgets, but those who are grassroots in the hood, in the community, in an under-resourced context, and they're doing something restorative. Mm-hmm. And so this first year we did it. It was beautiful. We told the stories of people around Phoenix.
Massive success.
Yeah, man. And
massive success.
It was beautiful. I mean,
all culminated in that release of all the videos in some theater you rent out with all these people coming. And I'm telling you, the tears in the room, Oh man, it was one of those moments that I'll never forget. It was a moment that's like, God is really on this. And how many people gave you confirmation? Like, this.
Yeah, I was so encouraged because, like, man, as an artist, you're nervous.
Yeah.
You know, that's a nerve-wracking thing. But then, like, when I turned around during intermission, I see all these people with tears. It was crazy. Like, Adelaide Good, she came up to me. She's like, God spoke to me through these films. She's just sobbing.
Yeah.
And she's like, I got to do something. He's calling me to something. Yeah. And then while I'm filming the next round of films this year, I'm at a school on the South Side filming, and there's Adelaide. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm here filming one of the Beloved Stories films for this year. She goes, I'm here because I watched the Beloved Stories films.
Exactly.
She's like, this is my being obedient to what God put in my heart. And I'm like, dang. So it's just cool to see the way God uses it. And then these organizations, some of them really have been able to raise quite a bit of funds through new donors, through what they're doing with their films. And now, like, it tells their story so much easier than a PowerPoint could.
Yeah.
So much easier than a 2-hour tour could. You know what I mean? So much easier than a newsletter could. And so now people get to send just through a link, be like, hey, here's our story. You get this digital proximity to what we're doing. Yep. You can see the kids' faces if they're working with youth. You can see the inmates inside a prison that you'll never get to see otherwise. You know, you can see the people in the community that we're serving. So you get to understand a little bit more than you could possibly understand otherwise.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's it. I think a couple of things I want to say just to affirm this is, you know, when I heard the idea for the first time, you could sense the Spirit of God on it. As I've watched over these years, which have not been without complications, when you tell the story, sometimes people can think, well, that sounds easy. I wish I just had a donor come out of nowhere to give me all the money that I need. And I wish I just had all the skills and I could just step right into it. It's highlights where there's been moments of, how are we going to pull this off? The overwhelming nature that comes along with it, the heaviness of telling stories that are so overwhelming that Josh is calling me going, man, you're such an empath that you're getting overwhelmed by being in these places and depressed and feeling the weight of the ministry of this. You take seriously the sacredness of the stories that you're telling. And I think people feel that when Josh comes in the room. Like when you come, I think they feel like he really cares about the story so much that he feels like if I don't get this story right, it's going to affect so many people. I got to get their story out there. You bring so much value into every community that is entrusted to you. And you toil over the editing process and you toil over the right shots and the stories. The amount of effort and work that goes into this, I could see why God has freed you up to make this a full-time reality. So that is a big deal. One of the comments that I think needs to be told that I heard more than 3 times the night that we met at that theater was that people said this phrase multiple times, that it's like, I can see these people through the eyes of Jesus, that it's like Josh has this ability to kind of allow us to see these communities through the eyes of Jesus. That feels so holy to me that God is using these films to kind of turn the blur filter off and like clean up the images on how people see marginalized communities.
Right.
There is so much hatred of marginalized communities. They're dangerous. There's poverty. There's like, they're breaking the law, all these kinds of things. And believe me, I'm not saying there's not brokenness there, but it's such a like fear at best and a hatred at, worst, The best is they're scared and they're operating out of fear. And at worst, they hate these people that they should love, and your ability to kind of zoom the the lens of love on these communities makes people who would never love their neighbor in this way be able to go, man, I actually have empathy and compassion for these communities that many of them would never go into. And you're just gifted at it. I think Jesus has gifted you in that way to kind of, and given you his eyes in that way. Like if he was behind the camera, it's like he gives you these miraculous shots, and you're always really careful to give him the credit for it. You don't, I like even just like, look at God's miracles throughout this whole thing. I don't think you even take credit for it, which is such a beautiful reality. So when people are connecting with beloved stories, I want them to understand the miraculous nature of it, but I also want them to understand the hard work and toil that you've put into this as far as developing your skill, making your connections, and now giving up a career in like commercial filmmaking.
Yeah, because I can't do both.
Yeah, in order to go full-time with this nonprofit. So I'm super proud of you, man.
Thanks, bro.
And I can see in the first year how the Lord's really worked. One more question. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Yeah. What do you think people can look forward to in year 2?
In year 2?
Yeah. What are they looking forward to, man? Give us a sneak peek of what are we looking forward to for year 2?
Man, well, 4 of the films for year 2 are going to be Arizona-based. One of them's going to be Atlanta, and the other one's going to be South Bronx, New York.
Wow.
All of them are unique. They're all unique, just like last year. So yeah, I mean, I sent out a little email, but they're all doing impactful work. You know, they're all. I don't want to say too much because it would take too long.
Exactly.
But it's all going to be beautiful films that capture real faces, real stories. Yeah, man. And so my hope is like, well, when I walk into a community, the biggest thing, and like being in the streets, being in the hood and stuff, and all these different places, respect and honor is like the biggest thing. If you don't respect anybody, no one's going to respect you, you know? So my thing is like, man, when I walk in these places, I hope they feel honored when I left. That, man, he honored us. Man, he respected us. You know what I'm saying? So like when we make these films, I hope people go, man, I want to honor them. Man, I want to respect them.
So good.
You know? And this year, we're just going to honor some more people and respect some more people and show them love and shine a light on the light that's already bursting out of what they're doing.
That's right.
And so, yeah, this year, these films are going to be really cool. They're really fun and they're a good time. I'll say this last thing. One of the things that Beloved Stories is praying for is to meet more filmmakers who are interested in moving with honor and respect in marginalized spaces.
This is important.
Yeah, it's. I know tons of filmmakers, but not a lot who have much interest in moving in those spaces. And no shade on them, it's just what it is. So I'm looking for more filmmakers who want to move and be a blessing in their city, who want to bless those who are in proximity to them.
Skilled filmmakers, not just a guy who can pick up a camera. Yeah.
Artists.
Artists.
I value excellence in this, but I just want to throw that out there. That's the story. Like you and I say this to people all the time. The stories are not the hard part to find. The stories are everywhere. We got a long, fat list of people's organizations who are doing work all around the country and in other countries that we'd love to tell, but Josh can't do it all. Yeah, and Josh doesn't want to do it all.
Well, there's a couple of things. You mentioned now what are some of the needs, and the main one that you said is I'd love to meet and maybe build a collective of other filmmakers that are wanting to tell these stories and care about marginalized communities and honor those communities. So that's one. So because you have a donor that's supporting this, do you not need any more donors?
Absolutely.
No, we do. We absolutely
do.
need donors. So I think if you're watching this and you're like, how can I get involved? And you're like, it sounds like they have everything they need. Then we've done a bad job at communicating. We actually do need more.
Yeah,
donors.
we're limited.
We're limited on how many filmmakers. We're also limited on how much finances are coming in. And we are looking to build our donor base out. Last year, we took a huge step from moving from just one donor to a community of donors by having people start to donate. And what a turnout and what a blessing it was. I mean, I think about, is it 20 to 25,000 that was raised?
Yeah, we had 26 grand.
$26,000 that was raised on top of the donations that we received through that generous donation. And our goal would be to double what we're getting. Like, we need to raise probably another $150,000 a year if we're wanting to to take the next step.
Yeah.
And so, we know this, that God has always provided, and we'll work with zero. Josh will
I'll do this if I'm not getting paid.
And he'll do it for with excess. We're content with whatever God gives. Yeah. But we also want to put out there to all those who may be watching, any size donation will make you a part of this community. You can get a newsletter. We'll keep you in the loop of what's going on. You'll be invited to the release, the premieres. And so any donation, for monthly donations or a one-time gift, man, that's a huge gift. And I know this about you, Josh. When somebody gives, $10 or $100 or thousands of dollars, it makes you feel like, wow, they're really invested in me. And so that's really sweet, because I know my son and his wife were at your premiere, and they don't have a lot of money, and they made a donation to Beloved Stories, and you honored them like you honored everybody else, because any size donation is like a massive gift.
Anything.
And it's like, makes like, hey, people support me and I'm not alone. Yeah. So please, if you're watching this, we need more donors. What else do we need? I would say prayer, like a ton of prayer. Josh needs a massive prayer covering of people. You are going into broken communities, man. And you feel the weight of that. And, you know that I get to play the role of helping you carry that weight and praying for you. And you call and we process and we talk, but you need a bunch of people praying for you. You're stepping into enemy territory.
Yeah, it's raw stuff. There's a lot that comes with it. All the prayer and encouragement is very appreciated and needed.
Yeah, as you're thinking of this podcast, if you're like, man, I wish I would have said this before we close, what is that? What are you hoping to say to those
The one
listeners?
thing I hope people see, and I'm going to be posting some videos about this just so people understand, Beloved Stories is not existing just to make cool videos. Beloved Stories exist to be like somewhat of an economic engine.
That's right.
As Justin defines it.
That's right.
When somebody gives their money to Beloved Stories and donates and gives us the ability to create a film, that film now gives an organization an ability to generate far more donations than they could through just that initial donation for Beloved Stories.
We've seen this. This is not theory. This is actually happening.
Yes, we've seen it happen. But I hope people know that the cost to produce a film gives someone an asset, a resource that they can now utilize to raise far more than what the film costs to produce, if that makes sense. So I hope people understand that this isn't just a cute project to make, powerful films. It's something also that the main purpose of this is to generate far more donations for these organizations, give them the ability to find new donor bases, new connections, new funding, because now, man, they can just send a link and people go, well, now I know what you're doing. Yeah, I want to fund that. And so the thing I say all the time is no one's going to fund something that they don't know exists.
That's right.
So, but once you know it exists, once you know its story, then you're like, man, I think I want to help that. Yeah. So
what we didn't count in that $26,000 that was raised that night was we had multiple donors come up to us and say, hey, we're going to give to these other organizations.
Yes.
And we're like, that's a win.
That's a win.
That is a win for us.
Yes.
And even though it was a fundraiser for Beloved Stories, the amount of money that was raised in these other organizations is also a massive win. This is a kingdom thing for us.
Yeah.
We believe God's going to provide for Beloved Stories. We also believe God's going to provide for these other places. And so I'm proud of you for that, because it's really, it's doing it.
It shows it works.
And it costs about $25,000 to make a film.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a fair evaluation. And it's not, I mean, you could pay way more. I mean, you've been on shoots where people are paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars on these types of big shoots. But for you to go around and only to do it for 25 grand sounds like a lot to some people. But man, the work that goes into this thing is a ton.
Yeah.
And so to get it to 25,000 and then for them to multiply that is a massive win. For their story to go out, for the communities to be built, for digital proximity for those who never go to those neighborhoods, and then for the donations that come in because of it.
Yeah.
Proud of you,
bro.
man.
Thanks, bro. Glory be to God.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, that's it.
All right.